What's up, everybody? I'm the Bat Otter, and we're back with Volume 7, the Deluxe Edition of Berserk. I'll probably break this into 3 videos, who knows. I skipped some pages, but we're back with them storming the castle. And in this one, I wanted to talk about some more of the narrative shifts in the story. And some of the characters that get built within the Conviction arc and kind of stay put. Because the end of Conviction does have a lot of implications for the story going forward. I've seen some of the new stuff that's coming out, so for sure this is Volume 7 is where the series takes its turn. And it all very much revolves around this castle, the Tower of Conviction, I believe it's called even. And the thoughts that are ringing through Guts' head in the situation are the quotes from Skull Knight in the previous volume. There's no way for man to change the course of this festival. It all lies within the currents of causality. So in Guts' head, he is very anxious about Casca being tortured again, Casca dying, everything repeating itself, and him being completely powerless to stop it. So you get a bit of the narrative shift to kind of fighting against fate, fighting against the odds. It kind of embodies the struggler namesake that Guts has been given due to the brand of sacrifice being on him. And slowly this character here is developed and looms ominously over the entire town. So Casca and this girl are captured and are going to be tortured because they're heretics, as heretics are, by our cool new band of guys with the Heartless, whoever he is. I think there's a winged creature, and so as you can see, I blocked off some stuff here because nobody wants to see that. If you know what that is, then you can understand the discomfort. But ironically, I do want to talk about this splash page in particular. We're just not going to look here. This girl is written and established, and it is her character that she is a coward. That's the character. So it gives you a unique perspective on Berserk because you haven't actually seen the way that other people would react to these situations. You see Guts becoming very angry, becoming very evil, almost in his depictions. But you never see what relatively normal people who are just being thrown into this life have. And I think including characters like this add to the narrative as a whole, because you can kind of see different perspectives on the world, and it just gives you more characters to look at, understand, and develop relationships with, right? Relationships being how you see the character. Is that how that would be said? But I really like these string of panels because she's going into the dungeon, which is under the castle, but is kind of descending into madness, saying, I can't do this, seeing the torture that is being inflicted upon the other people, and she kind of just disappears into nothing. All she wants to do is curl up into a ball in fear and not exist anymore. So it is a very, very gruesome and gross situation for some of these characters to be in, considering she is, at the end of the day, a young girl in this situation. Now, she doesn't last 5 seconds. She rats everybody out. But with Casca being the witch, the Inquisitors come by. This guy is totally a Heartless, by the way. Sees the mark. This guy's crazy, man. He slams his head into the ground all the time to repent. And they're going to throw Casca in the Iron Maiden, right? That's what those are called. Which is pretty cool. You never really see those used in stories. But, of course, Casca is saved by the Demon Baby. And this is where it all kicks off. These sludge monsters start eating the entire castle for breakfast. Guts is storming the castle with the help of his 2 friends, with the help of little Puck here and his little flower. And like I said, this is where the arc kicks off. These guys that are swarming Casca is protected by them, by the little demon baby. And Puck unfortunately bears witness to all of this stuff, can't save her, but she doesn't die or disintegrate like everybody else. Guts runs into Farnese, interrogates her because he's not playing games anymore, and has her lead him to the torture chamber. Now, I know that it almost sounds like a broken record, but depicting characters putting knives in their mouths, that's such a staple of Berserk that you don't see anywhere, but it really adds to that discomfort, if you ask me, because you might not see it when you're looking at it. You just think, oh, it's a knife in the mouth, whatever, torture. You don't really think about stuff like that. But I want you guys to think about, if you've ever been eating and you take a bite of the fork and just the fork, you know how uncomfortable that is? I'm thinking about it right now and my teeth are getting uncomfortable. So just imagine if instead of a fork that you're biting down on and can stop whenever you want, imagine it's some dude sticking a knife in your mouth. That's pretty uncomfortable. So little bits and pieces like that, I do appreciate that add to this uncomfortable feeling that comes with reading Berserk. She barely got a fingernail torn off, but now she's in the dungeon being surrounded by everybody. These two have an established relationship in the previous volume that turns out to be a good guy. They get to the torture chamber, a bunch of skeletons that have been eaten away by all the demons and monsters. Puck reunites with them until finally these guys are chased to the top of the tower, and this guy in his Looney Tune head is using God to dispel these creatures, when instead him and his goons are granted powers by that little egghead. And the way this guy is illustrated to be completely manic, I love the way that he's portrayed in this. He's such a uniquely done character, if that's even a word. You don't get stuff like that anywhere else, and so I really appreciate that stuff. You get a lot more with the Demon Baby. He comes very important later. Like I said, the end of this arc is just is nuts. And this half of the story, I think this is about halfway through. This is when things kick off for the story as a whole. Skull Knight confronts this little Eggman, and it's almost like a Western. I always mention that in Araki and JoJo, that things are portrayed in this it's high noon, the tumbleweeds are flowing, and it's the two cowboys standing off with each other. Miura is good at building that tension as well. It's just he doesn't do it as on the nose as Araki does, for obvious reasons. Skull Knight and this Eggman aren't cowboys. But it does give you that same feeling, especially with the ominous nature. And if you notice, most of Conviction is very dark whenever you read it. So at the end, whenever the sky finally clears up, spoiler in this review, I guess, it almost feels like you can breathe again whenever you're reading it, because it goes from being so dark all the time from the very beginning of the arc. Oops. See, those are pretty much censored on their own, so it's fine. But see, at the beginning of the arc, it's always gray. There's always those gray tones to it. The sky is never really blank. Whether it's cross-hatching screen tones or what, it's a very dark arc, if you could say that. And even from the very beginning, from the last volume, the same goes. And that's why I have those sticky notes there, in case I flip pages like that. Farnese is following Guts to the top of the tower to save Casca, and they encounter these large embodying individuals. You get some more character development for Luca and her buddy. She sacrifices herself, gets saved by Skull Knight in dramatic fashion, and we get a taste of these pseudo-apostles and Guts with nothing but determination and will, trying to save Casca with everything he's got. And we get some allusions to the actual Eclipse, and a lot of shots of Guts standing down upon these incredible forces against him. And this fight that he's going to have with these angelic apostles, pseudo-apostles is what he calls them, is one of my favorite in the entire series, just because of how much is happening at once. Of course, the artwork involved in it, and almost Guts' indifference, his newfound indifference to pain. It's not even that angry enjoyment of it anymore. It's just, let's get this over with, right? And yeah, so lots of good artwork. He's getting jumped by all these creatures, but he ultimately gets the upper hand on them until the big person starts coming in. All right, that was a quick cut. So what are some of the things artistically that you can kind of take from these fight scenes? Because as much as it is about the story and Guts overcoming these things, it also wouldn't be anything without the artwork. And like I said, it's never super deep or nothing like that, but it's a lot of tiny things that make you appreciate it more. Guts is about to get jumped by the large, imposing muscle man here, and he comments that he can't avoid it. It says that right there. And if you look at him here, you see why. If you've ever swung swords, swung axes, even done punches, kicks, stuff like that, you'd know that in the middle of a swing, in the middle of a movement, your feet, the position of your feet matter a lot. So the little nuances that Miura puts into the way that he portrays characters in certain moments, like this, where Guts is in a compromised stance, it's something that you could really appreciate, that he's making a very last-second knee-jerk maneuver to avoid getting absolutely pummeled. And even pages like this, I really like this page here, because, once again, it all goes down to the simplicity. This guy is a big, imposing figure. That doesn't give Guts a lot of options. So how do you portray that? You give it one whole page, and you don't even fit the entire thing on there, right? That gives you that claustrophobic feeling, and that adds to all of the imagery and the narrative that Guts is facing. So that way you as a reader can better understand kind of what's happening here, because it almost feels like you can't see everything. Like you're looking through a very tiny peephole as opposed to the entire wide-angle shot. So that all adds to the artwork. But Guts, in his relentlessness, has a very big force to overcome to get to Casca. So I like those narrative beats that it has. The ominous presence of everybody else he hasn't faced yet, and of course Casca being the main goal. So we get some more Skull Knight fighting Little Eggman, with Luca as the witness to that. And another recurring theme that you see throughout this arc is people like Luca, like Farnese, like some of the other characters that are just being introduced to all this craziness, are witnessing their worlds kind of collapse, fall in on themselves. Luca gets abducted by the Eggman. He tells her his story of having resentment for the world and how he sacrificed himself and his world to the God Hand and all these different things. And Luca thinks, well, why did you tell me this? And he says, I don't know, I just kind of wanted to be known. So is it a sympathetic villain? Not really, but it is a fleshed out villain, a fleshed out character that you get right away. And at the end of the day, it still builds that ominous nature behind it all, which is really, really good, as always, right? Not gonna show that either. Everybody blinked there too, right? Pick back up with Guts fighting the fight, and a lot of what makes these fights so good as well is the witnesses to the fight, right? They're like, wow, look at what he's doing, look at how fast he's moving, look at this damage that he's taking, look at this, look at that. And it works because if we were only following Guts, then we'd think, okay, this is just another run-of-the-mill day. But whenever Guts is hacking somebody's leg off, at the same time he's throwing a knife at another opponent in one fell swoop with excellent shots, excellent choreography, it makes it that much better, right? To see everybody else's reaction to it. And then the fact that he always gets up ready for more, right? And so this is what I'm saying, that he's portrayed more heroically, because what do heroes do? They take beatings, they take punishment, they take into fights, and they stare down insurmountable odds without even flinching. And the way that Farnese is witnessing Guts fighting all of these monsters, that she's finally figuring out her monsters, is in a heroic stance. And I just like that shift. I like Guts before, I like Guts after. I like them both. I think they work for the character, and I think that the way that these characters are written is in a way that makes them feel very alive. It makes them feel very fluid. And throwing them into these different situations as they progress really does add to the what makes Berserk so good. But as Guts continues to fight and continues to go for Casca, just as in the Eclipse, he's getting overwhelmed. It gets to the point where this guy is clawing him just like that monster that clawed out his eye, right? So when I saw this, I was like, oh, snap, you know? That's a very dramatic scene. And so as that fight kind of goes on, you get more illusions. He gets his head, this guy gets his arm, and now he's completely compromised. But it's unwavering. It's great. It's great stuff. I love talking about this stuff. I like looking into it, from the artwork to the story narratives to the subtleties that are introduced here and there. I love it all. I really do. So he's in a compromised position. This big guy says, "You're sentenced to death by wheel." Slams him into the wall. He takes an utter beating. I think this is the worst beating Guts has taken in a lot of arcs. I'd say that this is in a way worse than the beating he took whenever he fought the Moth in Lost Children. But he says, bring it on, activates his arm cannon as he's getting hit by the wheel, uses the momentum, and we get some more twisty compositions of him causing absolute carnage. He takes a shot at the big guy, goes all the way up, chops this guy clean in half, all in one fell swoop while flying through the air with the arm cannon. It's... God, do I even have to speak at this point? Is there even any point in me reviewing? I'm just showing you guys what makes this so great. We get a classic, I wasn't aiming for you. Whenever Guts gets cornered by this guy in one fell swoop, very precise swoop, just to show how much of an expert swordsman Guts is at this point. With this large sword, he makes a clean cut in this guy's throat, kills him, and we get the setup for the rest of the arc, which is this entire town is about to be consumed by these glob thingies, and the landscape becomes exactly what it was in the eclipse. Guts gets separated from the gang, and the rest of the arc occurs, and the tower starts to collapse into the God Hand. So more and more parallels, very intentional parallels, you're not a genius for pointing them out, right? Start to occur to that is very reminiscent of the eclipse, and you get really gnarly images like this. I miss stuff like this from Berserk, just these really gnarly, nasty panels, just to show you the severity of the situation. The demons are possessing people, and this has a little bit of setup as well. If you check it here, he's like, father's going crazy, and then the mother goes crazy, and so they're feasting on the kid. I mean, ain't that something? Good stuff. It's gross, but it's good, you know? So yeah, this is where we're gonna cut it off here. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And yeah, I mean, like I said, you don't even need words with some of the stuff in Conviction. And this is why I wanted to review this one. It's just that good. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.